Hello, everybody. Really good to have you tuning in. It's Julia here, and today I have the pleasure of having a conversation with James. Hi, James. How are
Yeah,
you doing?
I'm glad. It's a pleasure.
It is indeed. And so far, the Wi-Fi on both our sides is working, so we're going to jump right in.
Yeah, great.
And today we're going to think about one of the goals in our 5-year goals. So, in a little bit more depth. So, James, maybe you can start off by telling us about this particular goal.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking about the leader's goal, which Ben kind of outlined in his talk on one of our 5-year goal Sundays. And I guess the leadership goal is an interesting one because on one hand, it's quite difficult to quantify. How do you know when you've reached your leadership goal? How do you know when you've achieved that? And yet it's really important because it underpins everything that we're aiming to do. Leaders are so important in terms of gathering people, in terms of leading ministries, connect groups, all sorts of things. And for us to fulfill the vision of helping Bristol believe, and for us to fulfill and achieve these goals, we need leaders. We need people to step up and to lead. And so the leadership 5-year goal, the leaders 5-year goal is all about developing faith-filled, competent leaders that can lead at every level of church life. And so by that we mean people leading themselves, leading their homes, leading connect groups, leading ministries, leading sites, leading churches. If we're talking about leading, church planting, we need leadership teams to go and move and start up new churches and new ministries. So it requires something of all of us, which I think is why it's so exciting, is because actually everyone can be involved in this. So there's that side of thing, and in order to do that, it requires a consistent leadership development program that will equip men and women for ministry. So we're hoping that we're going to continue in that vein over the next 5 years and see loads of leaders step up and lead in different areas of church life. So that is the goal. That's what we're talking about.
Wonderful, James. It just really strikes me in what you say that it's the people bit behind all of these projects. Just that so important thing of raising the sort of people who are going to be able to take forward kind of all the other goals. And you've mentioned that there is a sort of leadership program that's in the process of being developed. I wondered if you could just give a few ideas about some of the next steps over the coming kind of weeks and months.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's part of a bigger conversation around leadership. Perhaps we can't have it now, but I think there's that ongoing conversation that is whether, leadership is nature and nurture, and how and what is involved in that. And I'm of the mind that it is absolutely both. That there is something innate in people to lead, but I think also there's so much that can be learned and taught and taken in. And as leaders in this church that we want to take that responsibility seriously of seeing this incredible church that we have, the incredible people that we have in our church, and thinking and taking that really seriously, and seeing it as the provision of God to steward well. And so we want to give people really easy opportunities to step in to leadership. And so we've already started doing that over the last couple of years. So you will have noticed, hopefully, or you will know that we've had some Leadership Connect groups running. So Andy and Cheryl a couple of years ago started that, having people in their home. Remember those days? Yes. And that was for people who were interested in leadership, perhaps exploring that. There's a level 2 and a level 3 that we've also run, where people have taken that next step of look at what does it take for me to lead myself? What does it take for me to be involved in leading teams and ministries? And so different leaders in the church currently, or existing leaders, have been involved in running those connect groups. So that's That's a fairly straightforward way of getting involved. So you can sign up to a Connect group, and there'll be 2 Connect groups running next term in the summer term that people can sign up to. And there's also going to be some leadership seminars in May for people who are interested in growing in their leadership and growing in what it means to be a leader in the church. And so that will again be a really great opportunity for people to find out more about City Church and what it means to lead in City Church.
Wonderful, thank you. I love that idea of, as you say, stewarding the resources that we have at City Church and just acknowledging how rich we are.
Amazing.
In an amazing array of leadership with such multifaceted gifting and ability. You sort of alluded to this idea of whether, you know, leaders are born or whether they're kind of nurtured.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking that I guess not everybody will put up their hand as a sort of natural leader.
Yeah.
And in fact, I would say that quite a few people are a little bit reticent in stepping forward to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people will count themselves out, and that's quite common. I know we've talked about that before. So I wonder if what would you say to that? Because I think it's a common thing, isn't it? Oh, I could never lead. I'm not a leader. I'm not that kind of person. What's your response to that?
So absolutely, I think that it's incredibly common that in stepping forward to something, there's almost inevitably a little voice in the ear saying, I'm to this or not enough that. Or potentially, surely somebody else would do this better or could do this better. And I think that that's really normal. And I hear it a lot. And common things are things like I'm too young, or I'm too old, or I'm too female, or I kind of don't have the right marital status. So I would say that what's hugely helpful is just to kind of recognize that if we listened to that little voice in our ear, then none of us would step forward.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing is that there may be people who have stepped forward in the past, felt like they've put themselves out there, and either haven't been noticed or have felt like they've been ignored, or there hasn't been any follow-up. So I think it's also just important to acknowledge that actually the church hasn't always got this right. And I know I've stood in meetings, not necessarily at City Church, but at conferences or at other situations where you feel like you've responded to something and nothing's really happened. So it's just important as leaders as well, acknowledging that is something that people are also dealing with, and that then I think stops people from stepping in again. Oh, do I really need to do this again? Do I need to put myself out there again?
Yeah,
it's worth acknowledging that.
That's such a helpful comment, James. So actually, maybe what we would be saying is, if that's you, then can we encourage you to step forward again, or come and talk to someone? Because again, it's the heart of City Church to better support people in doing this. To give people a really good experience of stepping forward into leadership.
Gee, I just wonder whether, just on that, you're the queen of this in terms of encouragement, in terms of encouraging the gifts that people have, and you're a great encouragement to me. And thinking about some of those verses in 1 Corinthians 12 about every member of the body playing its part, that we're all part of one body, but we've been made different. Our contribution is different, but as important as anything else. I just wondered whether you could just say something around how we can develop that culture of encouragement in one another, so that we all feel like we can play our part.
Yeah. So it's wonderful that you referenced that Corinthians passage, because I guess my starting off point would be to say that this is first and foremost a comment about our generous God, that he's lavish in how he gifts us. And So again, there need to be no concern about being at all self-promotional if you step forward, because it's kind of like, this is not me, this is God, this is what God's entrusted me with. And in a way, to have that expectation that we are all going to have giftings and abilities. And I think this is a bit where we can all get involved in really calling this out in each other. So I think there's something about being, expectant and actively on the lookout for, what do I see in my brother and sister that's godly and good, that could add value and contribute to what we're doing at City Church, and to speak that out, to call that out of them, to comment on it. And I would say that probably everybody needs that encouragement, even people, well, like you, who've been leading in a very visible way for a long time. It's just such an important thing. And we would do well to just be persistently relentless in doing that. So I think in a way that's a mark of a leader, that you are looking at the people around you and thinking, how can I help them to flourish in their giftings? What can I see in them that I can help nurture and develop and call out?
Yeah, I love that. And also, I guess the other thing is that in acknowledging the variety of gifting, I think what we're trying to do in the 5-year goals is also present variety. Is like in each of the goals, it requires different types of people to get involved. So you've got the sites goal, and that's perhaps people who've got a real heart for Bristol and local community, who love building relationships with one another, who perhaps have the gift of hospitality. What an amazing thing to bring. And so that could be an opportunity to get involved in that. Or church planting, that perhaps get up and go entrepreneur, I want to start something from scratch. Businessy people perhaps, or I really fancy doing that brings out other different leadership skills. And thinking social action, care for the poor, people who have that kind of sacrificial leadership, that they're willing to lay their lives down for others and seek out people on the fringes. People who have a gift of administration and finance and know all the legal stuff when we talk about buildings. There's just so many options, isn't there, for people to get involved in. I think that's why it's really exciting, and we need to be able to mobilize the whole church involved in these goals and in the leadership goal.
Yeah. Absolutely lovely. As you were talking, I was thinking we just need to keep on listening in to, what are people saying and talking about, and keep on looking, what are people doing that's good and godly, that we can encourage them in. So James, I'm just wondering about everybody listening to this, how can they get involved in this particular goal, and what might people be praying for?
Yeah, that's great. I think there's a few different ways that people can get involved. Like I said, there's the leadership teaching series in April, with some seminars in May and some connect groups that run through the summer term. So that could be a good and helpful introduction. I think the other way, and I think that part of my story of joining City Church and being involved, is areas of serving. Now, at the moment, it's really difficult because it's like, how do I serve church when we're online? But there will be a day when we are back together, and we're going to need leaders to step in and step up and lead in different areas of church life. And I always think that is the best way of getting involved, being equipped, and learning about what it is to lead. And so my encouragement would be to be ready, and there'll be opportunities to sign up to serve in different areas, whether that's kids ministries, worship, signing up to lead connect groups, all those kind of things. They will be opportunities for people to get involved. So I think looking specifically at those opportunities around leadership and the connect groups, but also then serving opportunities and seeking those out, and just saying yes, having that attitude of yes, I'm up for it, I want to be involved.
Fantastic, James. Thank you so much. I'm really hoping that everybody who's taken the time to listen to this has had their hearts stirred a little bit, and are excited for kind of what lies ahead for all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.
You too. Bye.